The baby looks fine. But what I'm seeing on this screen, my name is Joe, I'm 37, a Marine, and I came back from Kandahar just 2 weeks ago after an 8-month deployment. I was sitting in that cold, sterile exam room in Phoenix while my wife, Melissa, lay on the table with gel smeared across her stomach. Dr. Bradley Richardson, the man running the ultrasound, suddenly froze. His hand trembled like he'd just uncovered something he wished he hadn't. "Sir, I need you to step outside immediately and call a lawyer." The words landed like an explosion. Melissa's face twisted with confusion, her eyes darting from me to the doctor. That same puzzled look she'd been wearing for weeks now, like she was constantly trying to decode what I was thinking. "Is something wrong with the baby?" I asked. My voice stayed calm, level, like it always does. "That's what the cause trains you for. Stay steady when the world is crumbling around you." Dr. Richardson wiped sweat off his forehead with the back of his hand. The wall behind him displayed certificates proving decades of medical experience, but right now he looked like a rookie. His face had drained of color, his eyes flicking nervously between me and the monitor. "The baby's healthy," he said again, then lowering his voice so Melissa wouldn't catch it. "But what I'm seeing here indicates development consistent with 32 weeks. Silence. Just the hum of the machines." Melissa kept smiling like everything was perfectly normal. She'd been doing that a lot, pretending 32 weeks. I repeated slowly. "Yes, sir." My brain immediately did the math. 32 weeks ago I wasn't home. I was shoving gear into a transport plane headed for Afghanistan. 32 weeks ago, I kissed my wife goodbye at Sky Harbor Airport. 32 weeks ago, I was halfway across the world, sleeping in a canvas tent on dusty ground. The doctor looked at me like he was bracing for impact, waiting for me to explode. Maybe he expected yelling, fists through walls, some kind of scene. But I just sat there, absorbing the intel like it was another mission briefing. "Joe." Melissa's voice was soft, small. "What's happening? Why do you both look like that?" I turned to her, really studying her for the first time since I got home. The way her phone had never left her hand these past 2 weeks. The way she talked about the pregnancy like it was some sort of unexpected miracle. The way she insisted we schedule this appointment so I'd be here. She wanted me in this room for this moment. The weight of realization hit me like a sandbag. I met Melissa 6 years ago at a barbecue in Tempe. She was working as a dental hygienist then, and she had this laugh that seemed to fill the entire backyard. I was stationed at Luke Air Force Base before transferring to Camp Pendleton. She told me back then she'd always admired men in uniform, admired the discipline, the sacrifice. 3 years later, we were married in her parents' church. Small ceremony, simple, heartfelt. I deployed twice after that, both short tours. She handled those well, or so I believed. Care packages, handwritten letters, keeping the house in order. Other Marines envied me for having that kind of wife. When this Kandahar rotation came up, she wept at the airport, real tears streaming down her face. She promised she'd be waiting when I came home. "I'll stay busy," she'd said, hugging me tight. "Maybe take some classes, work on the garden." For the first month overseas, we managed video calls. She looked tired but strong. Normal. By the second month, the calls were shorter. She said she was taking pottery classes in the evenings, said it helped her relax. By month 3, I was mostly getting brief texts. "Busy day. Monsieur, everything's fine." I thought nothing of it. Wives of deployed men adapt in their own ways. 2 weeks ago, when I came back, she seemed different, jumpy. She'd put on weight, which she blamed on stress. Wore baggier clothes. Claimed she hadn't been feeling well. Then, last week, she dropped the bombshell. She was pregnant. "I found out right after you left," she said through happy tears. "I wanted to surprise you when you got back. I'm about 10 weeks along." I believed her. I felt proud, even like this deployment had given us something new, something worth the distance. I let myself believe. Now, sitting in that doctor's office, the math didn't add up, not even close. Dr. Richardson was waiting. Melissa was demanding answers. My chest felt like it was caving in, but outwardly I was composed. Always composed. 32 weeks, I said again. "Yes," the doctor confirmed. His trembling had stopped, but he kept darting his eyes toward the door like he wanted to bolt. "Sir, I have to ask, were you present during conception?" Melissa went ghost. "Not confused this time, Court Joe. I don't understand what you mean," she stammered. But her voice cracked. Panic, not innocence. "What does 32 weeks mean?" I stood up slowly, shoulders back, military posture. "It means," I said, staring right at her, "that when this child was conceived, I was in Afghanistan." The silence was suffocating. Even the machine's hum seemed to fade. "That's impossible," Melissa whispered. but she wasn't meeting my eyes anymore. She was staring at the ceiling tiles, her fingers trembling against the paper lining of the exam table. I told you I'm about 10 weeks pregnant, she insisted. It happened just before you deployed. Dr. Richardson cleared his throat. Ma'am, the fetal growth measurements are undeniable. This pregnancy is approximately 32 weeks along. That would place conception around 8 months ago. Her face crumbled as the carefully crafted lie unraveled in real time. Somewhere in her story, she'd lost the math. Or maybe she'd never bothered to check. There must be some kind of mistake, she pleaded. The machine, the files, something got mixed up, but my thoughts were already elsewhere. To Trevor Williams, the neighbor who'd been helping out while I was gone. Melissa mentioned him more than once. Fixed the fence, moved furniture, a good neighbor. I thought of the dwindling phone calls, the late pottery classes, the loose clothes, and the way she insisted on scheduling this ultrasound. She wanted me here, wanted me convinced, wanted me to raise another man's child. The cold inside me hardened. Not rage, clarity. The same sharp clarity I'd felt looking down a rifle scope. Doctor, I said evenly, I'll need full copies. Measurements, images. The entire report. Joe, please. Melissa's voice pitched higher. You're scaring me. I looked at her, this woman I'd built a life with, trusted for 6 years. 3 years of marriage, 8 months spent overseas while she was in someone else's arms. I'm gathering facts, I told her. That's step 1 of any mission. The drive home was silent, except for her desperate words spilling into the space between us. Excuses, theories, anything to claw her way out. Maybe they confused my records with another patient's. These mistakes happen all the time, don't they? Remember when you got another Marine's lab results by accident? That could be it. I kept my eyes on the traffic ahead. The world outside was carrying on like nothing had changed. Phoenix freeways packed with people living ordinary lives, while mine was collapsing in the passenger seat. Or maybe the machine was off, she continued, twisting her hands in her lap. Maybe they calibrated it wrong, but I wasn't listening anymore. I'd already started planning. Those things are just computers, right? Computers make errors. We pulled into our driveway. The house looked the samiest when we'd left an hour ago. Same desert landscaping, same red tile roof, same basketball hoop I'd installed 3 summers back, but everything felt different now. I parked the truck and sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled down. Joe, please say something, Melissa said. You're making nervous. I looked at her, really looked at her. The weight gain made sense now, the loose clothes, the way she'd been avoiding certain positions. We'd been intimate since I got. When are you due? I asked. What? If you're 32 weeks pregnant, when is the baby due? Her mouth opened and closed. She was calculating, trying to figure out what answer would work best. The doctor, didn't say exactly. Cheffinally managed. 8 weeks, I said. 32 plus 8 is 40. You're due in 8 weeks. We got out of the truck. I opened the front door and the house smelled like the vanilla candles Melissa always lit. Smelled like home, but it wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water and looked out the back window. Trevor Williams was in his yard next door working on his Midforce South, divorced about 2 years ago. Worked construction, had helped Melissa move the patio furniture while I was deployed. You want me to make some lunch? Melissa asked. She was trying to act normal, but her voice was pitched too high. How long have you been sleeping with Trevor? I asked. The glass she'd been reaching for slipped from her hand and shattered on the kitchen tiles. What did you just say? I turned around to face her. You heard him, Joe. That's insane. Trevor is our. He helped me with some things around the house while you were gone, but that's it. I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like that. Booch was backing away from me as Chess spoke. Not the body language of an innocent woman. The body language of Samayan who'd been caught. The baby is yours, she said, her voice getting stronger. I don't know what that doctor thinks he saw, but the baby will get a second opinion. We'll go to a different doctor, and knelt down and started picking up the broken glass. The pieces were sharp. Clear like the truth. Melissa, I said, not looking up from the floor. I've been trained to gather intelligence, to read interpretations, to recognize deception. This isn't Afghanistan, she snapped. This is our marriage. This is our life. I stood up and dumped the glass pieces in the trash. You're right. In Afghanistan, when someone lies to you, they're usually trying to kill you. Here, they're just trying to destroy a life. She was crying now. Not the pretty tears from the airport 8 months ago. Ugly tears. Desperate tears. I love you, she said. Whatever you think happened, I love you. I walked past her toward our bedroom. I'm going to pack some things. Where are you going? To get a lawyer. Joe, please, we can work through this. The baby needs a father. I stopped in the doorway. The baby has a father. It's just not me. I spent the night at a motel near Luke Air Force Base. Cheap place, but clean. The kinderroom I'd stayed in 100 times during training exercises. Familiar territory. At 7 a.m., I called my lawyer Stephen Parker. We'd used him for the house purchase and our wills. Good man former me, he understood military life. Joe, what can I do for you? I explained their situation, the ultrasound, the timeline, the mathematics that didn't lie. Jesus, he said when I finished. I'm sorry, brother. That's rough. I need to know what my options are. First thing, we get you a DNA test. Establish paternity, or in this case, non-paternity. Second, we start documenting everything. The ultrasound report. Any communications you have with your wife about the pregnancy. Third, we prepare for divorce proceedings. What about Thea? Arizona is a community property state, but infidelity can affect us at division, especially if she was using marital resources to conduct the affair. We'll need proof. After the call, I drove back to Thea. Melissa's car wasn't in. At work, probably pretend interviewing was normal. I had my key off. It was still my house. Inside, it went to our home office. Melissa kept papers in the desk drawer, bills, bank statements, that sort of thing. I'd never had reason to look through what I found made every credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been, hotel charges and Scottsdale. Shopping receipts for men's clothing size large. I wore medium. Phone bills with hundreds of calls to Trevor Williams' number starting about a month after I deployed. But the worst was a receipt from a women's clinic in Tempe dated 7 months ago. Prenatal vitamin sand, a pregnancy test. She'd known she was pregnant almost from the beginning. She'd had 7 months to figure out how to handle the situation. And her plan had been to convince me the baby was mine. I photographed everything with my phone. Evidence. Intelligence. I was putting the papers back when I heard a car in the driveway. Melissa Washam early. I was in the kitchen when she came through the front door. She looked surprised to see me. I thought you were staying somewhere else, she said. I came back for some things. She set her purse on the counter and looked at me carefully. Have you been going through my stuff? Should I have been? Her face told me everything I needed to. Joe, whatever you think you found, there's an explanation. I pulled out my phone and showed her own off the photos. The restaurant receipt from 5 months ago. Dinner for two, paid for with our joint credit card, explained this. She looked at the screen and her face went pale again. I took my sister out for her birthday. Your sister lives in Tucson. She was visiting. I swiped to next photo. The hotel receipt from Scottsdale. Explained this one. Silence. I swipe it again. The men's clothing receipt. Anthis. She sat down hard on one of the kitchen chairs. The fight had gone out of her. How long? I asked. Joe, how long have you been sleeping with Trevor? Shepherd her face in her hands. It's not what you think. How long? Since about a month after you left. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it wasn't planned. It just 7 months, almost my The baby, I don't know. It could be yours. The timing, Melissa. I kept my voice level. You know it's not. She looked up at me, mascarooning down her cheeks. What are you going to do? I was already walking toward the door. Stephen Parker's office was in 20 minutes from the house. Modern building, glass and steel. The kind of place that handled serious business. I have the evidence, I said, sliding the printed photos across his desk. He went through them methodically. Former military men understand documentation. This is comprehensive, he said. Credit cards, phone records, medical receipts. How are you holding up? I'm functional, he nodded. He understood what that meant. Functional was sometimes the best you could hope for. Here's what we're going to do, he said. First, we file for divorce on grounds of adultery. Arizonolo's fault-based divorce and you have clear evidence. Second, we get a court-ordered DNA test to establish nan-paternity. Third, we petition for return of any marital funds used to support the... What about the house? With this level of evidence, we can argue for a disproportionate share. She used marital assets to conduct an affair. That matters to judges. How long will this... Depends on whether she can... If she's smart, she'll settle. If she fights, it could take months. I left his office with a folder full of paperwork and a court date 3 weeks away. The divorce petition would be served to Melissa at her work the next day. Professional, clean, no drama. That evening, I went back to the house. Melissa was in the kitchen cooking dinner for two. She looked up when I walked in, hope in her eyes. I made your favorite, she said. Chicken and rice. I filed for divorce today. The wooden spoon she was holding clattered to Joe, please, can't we talk about... There's nothing to talk about. Theoby isn't mine. We'll have a DNA test to confirm it. But we both know She turned off the stove and fessed me. What do you want? You want me to beg? Fine, I'll beg. I was lonely and scared, and Trevor was there, and I made a terrible mistake. 7 months isn't a mistake. 7 months is I love you. No, you don't. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 7 months sleeping with our neighbor while I was getting shot at in Afghanistan. She was crying again. But I felt nothing. The emotional part of their situation had burned out somewhere between the ultrasound and the credit card statements. I was going to tell her, Hugh, she said. After the baby, what? I was going to tell you everything. You were going to let me raise another man's child for 18 years and tell me afterward. She didn't answer, which was an answer. I'm staying at a motel until this is settled. I said the papers will be You'll want to get your own lawyer, Joe. Wait. I stopped at Thekachan doorway. What about us? What about our marriage? I looked back at 6 years of marriage, 3 years off thinking I knew who she was. There is no us, I said. There hasn't been an us since you decided to sleep with Trevor Williams. I left her standing in the kitchen with dinner getting cold on the stove. Outside, Trevor was in his drive wagon working on that motorcycle. He looked up when he heard my truck start. Our eyes met for a second through the windshield. He looked away first. The courtroom was small, sterile. Judge Patricia Hernandez preceding. Mela sat across the aisle with her lawyer, a young guy in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be any. Stephen Parker had done his sham work. The evidence was organized, documented, undeniable. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, the ultrasound report showing a timeline that made The DNA test results had come back the week before. Zero probability that I was the father, Johanna, Stephen said. The evidence clearly shows that the defendant conducted an extramarital affair through the plaintiff's military deployment, used marital assets to support this affair, and attempted to deceive the plaintiff into believing he was the father of another man's child. Melissa's lawyer tried to argue that the affair was irrelevant to asset division, but Judge Hernandez had been doing this for 20 years. She'd seen it all. Thecard finds that the defendant's actions constitute a significant breach of the marital relationship and misuse of marital property. She said the plaintiff is awarded 65% of all marital assets, including the family home. The defendant is ordered to reimburse the plaintiff for all marital funds used. In furtherance of the extramarital leffage, Melissa stared at the table in front of her. No tears this time, just defeat. Furthermore, the judge continued, the court orders that the defendant is solely responsible for all costs related to the pregnancy and birth. As the child is not the plaintiff's biological offspring, the gavel came down. Final. Outside the courthouse, Melissa caught up with me. Joe, wait. I stopped walking but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I looked back at her. She was showing now belly round under a loose dress. In 2 months, she'd have a baby with no husband and no father willing to claim responsibility. Sorry doesn't bring back 8 months. I said. She nodded and walked away. 3 months later, I signed the final papers at Stephen's office. The house was, the bank accounts were divided. Melissa had moved out of state back to her parents in Ohio. Trevor Williams had lost his job when word spread around the construction community. Sleeping with a deployed Marine's wife doesn't make you popular in Arizona's defense-heavy economy. Isaac's wife had also learned about the affair during the divorce proceedings, which cost him additional money in their settlement modification. I heard through neighbors that he'd moved to Tuxentry and to start over. I kept the house for 6 months, then sold it. Too many memories, too much history and I bought a smaller place near Thebes, clean lines, no history. I had my track, my savings account, and a lesson learned about trusting people completely. Deployment to Kandahar had taught me about survival in a hostile environment. Coming home had taught me about survival in a different kind of hostile environment. My commanding officer had offered me an overseas assignment. I turned it down. I wanted to stay stateside for a while, figure out what came next. Some evenings I'd sit on my back porch and think about the alternative timeline, the one where I'd believed the raised another man's child never learned the truth. That version of Joe Smith would have been living a complete infant life built on deception. I preferred the truth even when it was sagly. The military had taught me that clear intelligence leads to better decisions in war and in life. Melissa's deception had failed because she'd underestimated its power of simple mathematics and Amarine's commitment to facts over fiction. Sometimes the strongest stress points to betrayal is simply refusing to participate. in someone else's lies. This was today's tale of revenge. Only on Revenge with Arion, the world's #1 male revenge stories channel. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and of course subscribe, so you never miss another powerful story of payback. Every day, we bring you intense, gripping stories of justice, karma, and revenge that will leave you speechless. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support fuels our mission. Until next time, stay sharp, stay unbroken, and remember, true revenge is unforgettable.